Hi everybody, I'm Ellen. This is my brother Jim, and people always ask, everybody asks,
all the time.
Actually, almost nobody asks, but how to make our mom's homemade gefilte fish. So we're going to film a little video this year during Passover to show you how it's done.
Yay!
So this is a vidalia or sweet onion, and the thing with the onion is you want to grate it.
So I've nicely peeled it. All the skin is away from it, and then I'm going to use this lovely grater and just go ahead and grate up the onion. And you might need to do this in a little bit at a time and run away from the fumes, the onion fumes. I've kind of developed somewhat of an immunity to it in my years in the restaurant business, but
I can't be around it, so I'm going to turn it off. Alright, so I'm going to introduce you to one of the great innovations of gefilte fish making. In the olden days, or if you don't know about this, you'd have to make a fish stock to boil your gefilte fish in. And that means you'd get like a big pot of water, and there'd be all the fish heads and the bones and the tails and all that other junk, and it's super smelly and disgusting. But my brother Jim, who is a chef, introduced my mom years ago to something called fish base. And it's just this like frozen, it's got fish and salt, and it's like frozen concentrated fish broth.
people have done the stinky cooking for you.
Yeah, somebody else has done the disgusting
And then
stuff.
reduced it down to a paste.
You open it up, it's like that. This is frozen. It looks like a pint of ice cream. I got this stuff online. It's like soupbase.com or something. And you'll use maybe half of this. Well, if you're making a giant batch, if you're making a full batch of gefilte fish, you might end up using the whole thing. But I'll use about half of this, probably like a cup of this stuff. And I just throw it in with the boiling water, and then voila, instant fish stock. I forgot to have been actually saying the recipe along the way, but so we started with the fish base, a giant pot of boiling water. We're making half a recipe. A full recipe would make 50 gefilte fish balls. We're going to go for about 25. So if we were doing 50, you'd need 2 of those pots. You take 5 eggs for 25, and you just kind of mix them together.
Mixed.
And you're going to end up just throwing everything together. So
I've already put the onions in.
onions are in there. Actually, it's just one. That was just one sweet onion, Vidalia onion. There's that.
the eggs.
We'll be right back. So here's the other thing that makes this process bearable. You get the fish pre-ground. So if you can find some place where you live, I know like near us, there's grocery stores that in neighborhoods that have high Jewish populations, and they will often have like they're willing to grind fish for you, especially around Passover time. Jim and I just got back from the local kosher fish market on Devon Avenue in Chicago. And so rather than getting a bunch of fish and having to go through the disgusting process of grinding it, it comes already for us, which is lovely. And in this case, it's just gonna look like a bunch of ground beef or something, except it's fishy.
Looks like ground chicken.
Yeah, except it smells like fish.
Just like chicken.
Nope. So they just put all of our different kinds of, whoops, where's it? They put all the different kinds of fishes together in a nice plastic bag. And this fish is, let's see, my mom's recipe calls for 1 part whitefish, 1 part trout, 2 parts whitefish, and 2 parts pike. And if you were making a whole bunch of this, you might do that in pounds. And my other tip for this is, if you, at least at the kosher fish market where I go, if you ask for the northern pike, not the walleye pike, it's like 1/3 of the price. And the other thing, if you're ordering it, is you want to remember that when you're asking them, if you're specifying whether what you're asking them for is in whole fish or in ground fish. So for example, if I was making 50 of these gefilte fish balls, I would ask for 10 to 12 pounds of whole fish, 1 part trout, 2 part whitefish, 2 part pike, which makes about 5 pounds of ground fish. So what we have here should be about 2.5 pounds of ground fish if I did this right. Does this look like 2.5 pounds of fish, or does it look like I accidentally asked for 5?
No, that's not 5.
Okay, good. So we're just going to go ahead and plop this into this is just our mixing vessel. We'll just plop that in there with the eggs and the onion. Here's the trickiest part. It's time to add the matzo meal. And on my mom's recipe, which I think was her mother's recipe, it says 2 serving spoons of matzo meal. But what she means by serving spoons, we have no idea. And I think she might mean like kind of a bigger spoon like this one, or like a smaller serving spoon, definitely not tablespoons. But the thing is, you want to add some in, stir it up, and this mixture will end up being gloppier than you're expecting. It's not like hamburger, it ends up being a little soupier than that. So I'll put in 1. We'll mix it up and just kind of see what it looks like. And you're also supposed to add some.
I would put in 2.
Already?
Oh, is it 2 total, it says? Or?
Yeah, 2 total for the big
okay.
recipe.
Okay, never mind then.
So I'll let Jim stir. And it also calls for 1 to 1.5 cups of water. And what I remember from doing this with my mom is I think we also like put it in and then let it absorb a little bit to see how it felt. But I think you need the matzo meal as a binder. Although the eggs are a binder too, right?
Yeah, they're both binders.
So I'll put in a little water too. It's pretty gloppy. That's looking a little too gloppy, I think.
I think
but
so
not
too.
Too much too gloppy.
I would maybe just a pinch more matzo meal.
Mm-hmm. See when.
That looks good.
Yeah. This doesn't look like it's going to make 25 gefiltes either. And the other thing we can do is add a little salt and white pepper. If you're using the fish base, be really careful with the salt because the fish base is super salty, so you don't really want to add a lot of salt. Oop,
Piece of skin.
piece of skin. And you can always salt the broth more, so you don't need to salt everything now. So we're waiting for our matzo meal to soak in a little bit, and I thought I would read my notes from past years about the consistency. It says, you'll need enough matzo meal to hold it together and so that the meal will swell a bit in the broth and make the gefiltes bigger than they are when they're raw. The mixture will be much gloppier than, say, hamburger, more of a liquid than a solid, kind of oatmeal texture. You should be able to shape it into a ball with your hands and have it stay very loosely in shape while you're holding it. When you release it into the simmering stock, you'll sort of let the ball roll off of your hand, and miraculously it holds its shape when it hits the water.
Okay, we've got the rolling boil going, and Ellen's going to show you the technique here.
Dip your hands in cold water. Grab your 1/4 cup measure. Grab a 1/4 cup of goo, and you'll see it's pretty gooey, right? But here's the gefilte fish magic. Somehow it all stays together. You just kind of roll it so it turns into a ball. And then you let it roll off of your hand thusly.
And splash yourself with hot fish juice.
And let's make sure it held together. And it didn't. So that is the blooper reel. It didn't hold together at all. We might need to add more matzo meal to it.
I'm going to turn it up.
So we're actually adding a little more matzo meal because that one didn't, it held together kind of, but it kind of fell apart. Here, I'll show you. Oh, well, no, I can't show you because it'll steam up. But Oh yeah, you can see it's kind of floating around there at the top, but it lost a little bit around the edges, so we're adding a little more binder. We're gonna try this again. I guess you don't want your hands to be too wet. Hi, Heidi. Hi. Yeah, it smells fishy in here, doesn't it? You don't want your hands to be too wet because you don't want to add a lot of moisture to these guys. Popping it back and forth just a little, and roll it off your finger and hope that one sticks together better. All right, so now we're going to do a little gefilte fish assembly line and start putting these guys in. For reasons that are unknown to really anyone, you cook gefilte fish for like 2.5 hours. We don't know why, but we do it. And this has been about an hour and 50 minutes. And you'll see it kind of goes through cycles of rises and fall. Right now it's in a rise cycle. But I'm just kind of keeping it on simmer. And I'll keep it on simmer for another 40 minutes or so, and then turn it down and let them cool off a little bit. So just a couple more steps. You will want to take out a cup or two of the fish broth and throw it in a saucepan, and then chop up some carrots so that you get little, carrot things to put in with the fish, and then cook the carrots in that. And then also take about a cup of the fish broth. While it's hot, mix in a packet of gelatin and just like mix it up with a fork. And then when you're going to put your fish away in your containers, you'll pour that over it, and it makes that kind of like fish, I call it fish snot, like fish boogers, that gelatinous stuff that comes with gefilte fish. When you're going to scoop these out of the pot, you want to be really careful, because if you just poke around down there, you're going to stab some and they'll fall apart. And it's tricky when you're at the end, because it's hard. Oh, yep, there's one hidden down there. Got it. Hard to tell when you're done. And given how cloudy this water is, it looks like one might have disintegrated in there already. But you can't. Oh, there's another one. I feel it. You can't go crying over spilled gefilte fish. That's what I always say. So yeah, just gonna put the carrots on top. I'm not putting too much extra juice in there right now, so I'm using a slotted spoon. Here's that gelatin that I mixed with some fish broth. And, whoops, hang on. I'm just gonna pour some of this in there. And in the morning, as this stuff cools, you will get that nice kind of gelatinous stuff that goes with your fish. And if you were making this broth, if you were making it, the broth from actual fish rather than from that fish base, then it would make its own gelatin because of the bones and stuff. But because because I cheated and used the fish base, that's why I have to put some gelatin in there. And so that's it. That's homemade gefilte fish. I don't think it's any harder than like making hamburgers or meatloaf. I don't actually make hamburgers or meatloaf, so I cannot attest. But it's super easy, so much better than the stuff from the jar. And it's possible that even your non-Jewish friends will think that it isn't disgusting. Although I can't say that for sure. Don't forget, gefilte fish is meant to be eaten cold. So you'll stick that stuff in the freezer, in your Tupperware, in the fridge. You can serve it the next day. I like to put it out on a platter with the carrots and some of the gelatinous stuff and a little parsley, and then just serve it with some ground horseradish. And that's it. And don't forget your special gefilte fish shirt in celebration That's all, everybody. Enjoy my mom's gefilte fish.